whose host licenses we manage. We put this project together, and we're looking at biometric models from the water perspective, using fisheries-sensitive watershed monitoring work with the Ministry of Environment. We're using global vegetative modeling with ESSA, and we've got a integrated resource model with Cortex that we've developed and working with University of British Columbia Geology Department, looking at capacity of communities to handle these impacts. And so building analytic frameworks resting on the usual GIS-based spatial growth and yield forest estate modeling, and then taking quantitative data like that into a qualitative values simulator and looking at some of the options for managing this, trying to create options analysis tool so that we can have an adaptive integrated development modeling approach to look at how to adapt constantly as things change, and how do we make those decisions. And we need, in these kinds of, with this kind of thinking, with this kind of challenge of thinking about carbon and timber together, we really need a new kind of governance counterparty in the government who's more progressive, and potentially, of course, the integration of the Dirk ministries in British Columbia offers that. But it's not well recognized as you get into this modeling work, how immensely dynamic questions are and how challenging. And of course, very illustrative of that is the emerging climate-adjusted seed planting zones. Here's Western Larch. The green zone is the seed zones for Western Larch. That's where it's historically been present. However, in looking at the biogeclimatic ecosystems, other areas, and the trends of the pattern change, the yellow is the area that is going to be ideal for Western Larch. So it's now formally recognized as species that can be planted in those areas because it's going to do well, and perhaps it's going to do much better than the pine did, given the mountain pine beetle. But making these shifts for each of the species in British Columbia is the climate-adjusted seed planting zone research has been going on for 4 or 5 years now, and gradually various species are getting new prescription parameters. And we're looking at the problem of, are we dealing with the system today that is going to be there 100 years if you're thinking about permanence. So I just wanted to run over some of the ways in which we tackle this problem. And sorry, I skated across. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the BC Forest Offset Protocol. High standards matter, and Living Carbon's fully committed to work to the highest standards. Getting it right is critical, and David mentioned the Emission Trading System, EU, which is the world's largest trading system without peer, having rejected in 2007 reforestation or reforestation development mechanism as being tradable within the emission trading system. The European Parliament made that decision. Yes, the environmental community argued that permanence not assured. That was one of the things it argued. But it also argued that there were voluntary forestry projects which were not to very high standards, and that there's too much room here for grift. And I use that term because in Dutch and German offsetters are grifters, and there's a little bit of association with forestry being a tricky game, and a great deal of worry at that time that this was going to provide an excuse for the coal-powered thermal generating plants in Europe to postpone conversion to gas, and these excuses would be reduce the real emissions, and rather than, that is, would increase real emissions, would permit an increase in real emissions and not have true offsets. So high standards are very critical, and it's one of the challenges that we have in British Columbia collectively as we begin to develop projects. David described the 4 activities permitted under the op, and he described the ex ante versus ex post, the very challenging problem that we have, as especially in the reforestation side, that we have projects taking a long time actually sequester carbon, and therefore taking a long time to have credits that you can sell. So there's a great temptation to try and future trade your credits. And if you're financing your project, technically you've done that. You have to do that. You have to put money in up front to get results in the future. And so it's one of the areas which have to be done carefully and with great credibility. I'm going to go through standards briefly and show, of course, with reforestation, offsets are well into the future, as they are afforestation, and with reforestation, the only credits you get are the addition to what would have happened naturally, the reduction in the regen gap, and or the green area. So the number of credits are small. It's a very hard thing to develop a project where there's enough of a benefit, say, assisting the already very aggressive natural regeneration that you have in pine on a mountain pine beetle area as a reforestation project. It's an important value carbon trading can bring to that market, and there's room for some collaboration with government, but it requires all of these projects a strong partnership with government, a private-public partnership. Improved forest management, of course, has enormous opportunities in extending rotation, reducing logging, AAC, simply reducing the AAC, or reducing the impact by more careful logging, shifting harvest timing, less flash burning. There's a lot of forest top project types that are going to emerge, and when the standard comes out, and those projects will increase, may increase rotation length. So again, the green portion is a little bit in the present, and then your second rotation in the future. But it's going to be downstream some, and it's a challenge to have your credits spread out like that. One of the improved forest management project types we're working with one First Nation is to increase the riparian buffer. Of course, adds carbon to the landscape, and so there are many ways to do selective logging. From clear cutting can give you more sustained forest cover, but with conservation, I think the opportunity with conservation, avoiding a permanent conversion from forest to cleared land, either doing that, and to use my proxy concept of what if we didn't clear Williston Lake? Well, what if we didn't clear Site C? And which is, the tenders are going out to clear it, but there's about to be another large conversion event, and the projects that we're doing tend to be in urban areas, avoiding conversion in urban areas. and urban sprawl is one of the great